should be good to go. Okay. All right, everybody, we are actually going to start on time. I know that sounds like a rarity if you've ever been to an appointment here. We did come a couple minutes late. But thank you all for spending a Sunday with us. I really appreciate it. I know this is a topic that kind of makes everybody go like this, including the dogs. So I'm really happy to have these two great women here to help us figure out how we're going to help your dogs keep those nails trim, keep that mobility good. We're going to talk a little bit about how bad nails, long nails affect mobility and change the way a dog moves their body. So quick introduction. This is Dr. Steinke. She is from Savannah. She is a fantastic veterinarian. We've worked together for a long time on multiple cases. We're really glad to have her here. This is Kim Silver. She's from Building Bond. She is a trainer, local trainer. We have collaborated on many cases, including her own two dogs. So without further ado, let's get to it. You guys take over.
Thank you.
Nobody's here to hear me.
Sounds good. Well, just let me know if you can't hear me, and I'll try to be a little bit louder. But my part's going to be fairly brief. I'm not doing the training part. Don't worry. No. So, but I'm going to go a little bit about dog nails, dog kind of foot anatomy, and just some things we're going to watch for when we're like handling our pet's feet. Signs of like diseases that could be making the situation painful for your dog. So just as a brief introduction here, this is Monty, one of my own dogs who Kim has helped me with quite a bit. And he's going to feature in this presentation a little bit. If you see his gray feet, he is my best dog for photos. Everyone else was not a fan of this concept. You can see here in this picture, he is ripping one of his favorite toys, which is that Highland cow that they have at Petco right now. And you can see his nails are a little bit on the long side here in front, but he does have them fully extended because he's like really trying to grip this toy. That's having a pretty fabulous time doing it. All right. So, when we talk about the paw on dogs, I'm going to mainly just go over this in relation to the hand. Both with like a human, clearly your hands and your foot have a very different anatomy. However, if you're a dog, fundamentally your front paws and your back paws, once we're past the wrist joint or the ankle joint, are fundamentally the same. It's the same structure and bones. So here we notice Monty's gray paw here. As our model dog paw, he is missing a dew claw. His were removed by the breeder when he was very young, as is very common in certain breeds. If your dog does have a dew claw, please do know my professional opinion is it's totally fine to have a dew claw. Dogs can live long, healthy lives with their dew claws, right? But it is another claw to trim, and that one will never wear itself down. So you guys just have to be really cognizant of it. If you have a long-haired dog, make sure you're keeping an eye on those, because that would be the #1 nail that I have to remove that has circled itself around and embedded into a paw, causing a wound. Okay. So when we look at our paw here, this picture, the dog has that dew claw. That is like our thumb. And then we have 4 digits going across. This portion is our metacarpal. That is this portion on Monty. And on your hand, this is your metacarpals. We then have our digits 1, 2, 3. On this x-ray, you can see them a little bit more clearly. 1, 2, 3. And here on Monty, 1, 2, and that 3rd digit is really attached to that nail. It's fairly small. And unlike you, where your nail like sits on the surface of your 3rd digit, a dog, that nail directly attaches to the bone. Okay? So, and you can see on this x-ray, this is that 3rd digit, and I apologize, it's a little small on this screen, but you have an ungual process extending from it, and the nail grows off the ungual process where it becomes a little hazy here. This dog has very long nails in the x-ray. But so this is that 3rd digit, the ungual process, and then this part is nail directly growing off of the bone. So this is kind of a side view of that situation again. And again, this is that third little phalanx, and that bony ungual process coming off. We then have what we call the quick of the nail. I'm sure everyone's had their dog have a nail injury before. You see this pink flesh, it really hurts. That quick contains a lot of vasculature and nerve endings. And then you typically have kind of this epithelial layer, which kind of surrounds the quick. And when you're cutting the nail, you'll see this, it's kind of like a little chalky bit starting to emerge. And then on top of that, it's outer hard shell. Our goal is to really just be cutting the shell of the nail, that our outer hard keratin layer. We really are trying our best not to cut the quick, because obviously that's pretty painful. And just so you do know, if your dog ever damages or really hurts their nail, part of the reason a veterinarian is going to want to sedate them is because ideally we have to remove the damaged part, and we're trying to leave as much of that quick intact because it has that really important epithelial layer that allows for healing and good regrowth of the nail. If you damage that, there's a higher chance the nail is going to grow back abnormal. Okay, so more close-ups of Monty's feet here. You can see this is just kind of a side view. This is his nails long. His nails are cut on that foot. You can see it's starting to touch the floor. He's got a pretty upright stance. Not all dogs have this really square upright stance in their front limbs, especially if you have like a German Shepherd, for example, or a dog that's a little bit more relaxed in their wrist joint. But he stands pretty upright, and you can start hearing him click-clack around when you get long enough that it's touching the floor. It's a little hard to see in this picture, but when this nail is getting long, it is then pushing up on this digit, right? And so that is a little uncomfortable for him. This is, I mean, I don't think this was incredibly painful. I think he was fine. But taken to an extreme, it does cause that pressure there. And then dogs do tend to sink back in their metatarsals or metacarpals, these bones, and kind of change the flexion on their joints. So they're carrying themselves differently because of it. And especially in an older dog, if you already have arthritis going on, now you're putting abnormal pressure on those joints. And that's where we can start to see lameness secondary to long nails. And then we've got picking up his foot with those long nails. One thing you'll notice about Monty is he does get a little bit of separation going on here on the underside of his nail between that kind of epithelial layer and that outer horn. This can potentially be a sign of a disease. It can also be normal. It's one of those things that a small amount of this I don't make like a huge deal of by itself, but I do know this nail will be more fragile because it's like this and more likely to break or crack. And then we can see on that after we've trimmed them down a little bit, and you can get a sense of kind of that little chalky layer starting to emerge. And I'm not pushing it past that chalky layer. I mean, as you get better with it, you know, and you're practicing with your dog, can you push it to the point where you see a little pink point emerging in the chalky layer? It'll be right in the center. That's the very end. You sort of starting to see the quick. You can, but we do have, you know, good studies showing that, like, if you're trimming that close, like, they feel it. Like, they're really feeling it if you're right above the quick, even if you're not hitting the quick. And we definitely see this a lot in the vet clinic where, you know, you're trimming nails and all of a sudden the dog's like, ouch. And you're like, you're not bleeding, what's wrong? But it's just because you got that close that they still felt it as a nerve sensation. So especially if you have an anxious dog, you don't want to be pushing them to that extent. Really quick, I was just going to show a few images of some different foot diseases to kind of just be aware of. If you're ever getting ready to trim your dog's nails and you see this, and this is that quick right there, that epithelial layer, it's not bleeding. This is not an injured nail. And that nail shell lifting up off of it, this would be something I would definitely get your dog to a veterinarian for. Most commonly, especially if multiple toes are affected by this is an autoimmune disease called symmetric leukoid onchodystrophy, which is relatively common in, you know, as far as autoimmune diseases go. And it's something that we do typically treat these dogs with some form of immunomodulation. And then it's really important to keep their nails trimmed short. But otherwise, it's very painful for them to have these nails lifting off. This kitty toes over here, we've got a couple things going on. First and foremost, you guys can see this brown discoloration of the nail. That is very common with yeast infections, where you'll see this kind of brown outgrowth on clear nails. You can't see it on black nails, which makes it a little hard. But again, that's something that can definitely cause foot discomfort to have a nail bed infection. And then this dog has something called interdigital furunculosis, which is a common condition that we see in our allergy-prone dogs. Sorry, keep on trying to like run away over here.
Okay.
And our overweight dogs. And what's really going on here is between the dog licking and being overweight, how they're shifting their weight on their foot, they embed their own hair follicles between their toes, and it causes this massive inflammatory reaction. Typically, people think, oh, it's a foreign body in there, or my dog stepped on a cactus thorn. But the vet opens it up and there's no cactus thorn involved. It's really just a reaction to their own hair follicles going in. And this is something we see pretty commonly in our allergy pets. So if you do have a dog that's already licking their feet a lot, or has allergies and they're sensitive about their nails, this would be something I'd be looking for, because it's pretty painful for them when that inflammation is out of control. And then just two more here. This first one, this is an example of a very abnormal nail secondary to cancer. This is a benign tumor of the nail base, where it creates this like large horn-like nail. Again, if you're seeing a nail that just looks substantially different than every other nail on the foot, things we think about do include cancer, in addition to trauma, and then certain parasite infections can cause massive nail growth changes. Then this last one, I know we're not talking about kitties today, but this is a kitty cat disease that affects their feet specifically, and it's called like pillow paws or plasma cell pododermatitis. It's another autoimmune disease, and these cats have very tender feet. And their paws are not ulcerated, they're just very swollen on the underside with their paw pads. And this would be another situation where, again, you wouldn't want to try to trim this cat's nails. This is a painful condition. Okay.
Would a groomer tell you about this if they saw it?
I think that's a great question. I see a lot of things that groomers have pointed out to owners. And I think most groomers are excellent about noting ear infections and issues with nails and alerting owners to them. But of course, you can't say that universally across the board. I would just say that if your dog is really sensitive about their feet, it's never wrong to make sure you're taking a good look at them, or a vet's taking a good look at them, just to make sure there's not an underlying issue going on, because we don't always want to assume animals are just being dramatic. They can actually, have painful issues going on. We're going to circle back to this a little bit more at the end as far as the fear, anxiety, stress scale. But this is something that we use in veterinary medicine, and Kim uses as part of her work for assessing dogs of how things are going. And I think one of the most important things on this scale to me is the fact that dogs freezing is not a dog being happy. Like if your dog is being perfectly still at the veterinarian when I'm looking at it, and their ears are back and their head is down, it doesn't mean that they're having a great time. They are literally paralyzed with fear. And the hard thing is it looks like they're cooperating with the situation, but the threshold between being paralyzed with fear and a bite is actually fairly small. And so, this is something to keep in mind. And like I said, we'll kind of come back to this, but I'm a really big believer in using pharmaceuticals to make experiences better for animals, because, when I before I went to vet school, when I graduated, we were still kind of coming out of the age of just like get it done. And I'm like not proud to say how many animals I have seen muzzled and held down by multiple adults and so scared that you're urinating and defecating and screaming for a nail trim. Like, and of course, when that that dog is presented with coming back to that vet clinic, do they want to walk in the door? No, they just had this horrific experience. The other thing is we know when we do that to animals, we shoot up their blood lactate. We are doing harmful things to the body in that situation. And it puts a huge stress on the body. If they're an elderly pet that has heart or respiratory disease, we can really harm animals doing this. And so, medication options, there is like this gamut of medications, from medications where just taking the edge off a little bit, help them chill them out, lets you work on it at home with them. You can medicate, let them be chill for an hour, and then do a little bit on your own at home in a slow manner. Medications that are meant to hit heavier, where you have to give them at home, but then you do need to bring them into the vet clinic because they're going to be sedated enough that we need to monitor them. To injectable medications, where this is a situation where we're getting that pet to near unconscious or unconscious to make the experience bearable for them. I personally have a dog that Kim knows who I literally trim his nails when he's under anesthesia and I see his heart rate spike. He is out, he is intubated, I'm cleaning his teeth or doing whatever we're doing, and his heart rate will go from 60 to 95 to 110, just trimming his nails. Wow. And he's, I'm like, well, it's handy if his heart rate's low, but no, I'm just kidding. But no, it really convinced me that this is so scary for this dog, like that even in the state where he will tolerate having a tube down his throat, his brain is like hardwired that this is just a terrible feeling going on with his speech. And so for that dog, I do heavily sedate him for his nail trims. I put him fully in an unconscious state. And then the rest of the year between those nail trims, we worked really hard on some of these fear-free methods to try to maintain those nails and provide them. Which I'm going to hand this over to Kim, unless anyone else has any questions right now.
Yeah, if we're sedating them at home or making them relax, people like us, what kind of medications do we have access to?
That's a great question. So we're going to speak a little bit more about medications, and I just not to be legally, but legally I can't offer specific advice for a dog that I've never met. But there is a realm of over-the-counter calming products which have variable efficacy, is what I'll say about them. And just do remember that anything that is in the nutraceutical sort of market, so this is your CBD oils, this is hemp chews, this is your calming supplements, none of that is regulated. No one tests those products for safety. No one tests those products for how much of the product is in the product. And even something as simple as a joint supplement, Colorado State did a study a number of years ago on different glucosamine supplements, and many of them contain mainly sawdust. So, it's just like the Wild West when it comes to that stuff, and that's what makes it really hard.
We have a question online. It's a question about which trimmer is recommended for aggressive, fearful dogs. Ours is in the red zone. Are you going to talk about that?
I will get there. Yep. All right. Well, I think we should go ahead and let you keep going. All right.
Super. Awesome. And let's sum up with that.
Okay. This is my dog, Adam. Adam actually died in 2020. I acquired him. He was a stray. He was about 2 years old. I think he was probably a free roaming dog. If any of you know Animal Experts Inc., they actually darted him with a tranquilizer to catch him because he was very elusive. KVOA did a news story on him. He was very famous. He was, somebody took him in as a foster, and then he started to show signs of aggression in the foster home towards people. And I was the trainer who was, helping the foster at the time, and I was going over there every day. And eventually I ended up taking him, and then I didn't feel comfortable adopting him out because of his aggression, so I decided to keep him. And the people at the top of his hit list for aggression were veterinarians. He did not like veterinarians or anybody who smelled or looked like a veterinarian. And what he was worst about was trimming his nails. So I got my dog groomer friend to come over. You're not a veterinarian, come over and help me. And I had him muzzled for this nail trim. And very quickly he escalated, and thank goodness he was wearing a muzzle because he lunged and tried to bite her in the face.
Oh.
So rightfully so, my dear friend fired me as her grooming client with this dog and said, I'm out. This doesn't feel safe. And I'm like, I totally agree with you. It's not safe. So I went to my veterinarian and said, will you support me? I have a plan. And previously, she had this idea that we should try to get at least just one nail done because he would growl every time. You'd go to touch him and he'd growl. And she said, we should get one clip in after that growl so he doesn't learn that works. And I pushed back and I said, I would rather do this in a way where he doesn't feel like he needs to growl. That was like the premise of all the work that I did with him. He was acting the way he was acting with his aggression in multiple contexts, but especially so with vet care and nail trims because he was afraid. So the most important thing that I could do is make him feel safe. And I didn't want to outsource it because over time I became his most trusted person. So I didn't want to take him to the vet clinic long-term or to a groomer long-term to have him be comfortable with somebody else doing it. And I had never really cut a dog's nails before. I had always had the vet or the groomer do it for all the dogs that I had, or they wore them down on their own. It was never a big deal. So all of a sudden I had this big deal of a dog and a big problem, and I had to find solutions. So you'll see videos throughout the presentation today of him through this process of me working through this. So Dr. Steinke explained very thoroughly why nail care matters, why it's important. It's good health care for our dogs, and healthy feet support healthy bodies because long nails can affect posture, gait, their comfort. We want healthy movement, and we also want lifelong welfare, right? We want to be on top of our dog's nail maintenance. So why is this so hard for so many dogs? It can be hard because paws are sensitive. As Dr. Steinke explained, the whole anatomy of the paw, I think we all have a better understanding now of why they can be sensitive. And if there is any underlying medical condition going on, which might also include orthopedic issues that have nothing to do with the paw, and maybe your dog is sensitive about handling in general because they have an orthopedic issue. Are you trying to, trim their nails while they're standing and lift a paw up, or are they lying down? All of these things can impact that experience, and any previous experience that they've had with paw handling or nail trims will impact the nail trim that's about to happen, right? So dogs have good memories, very good memories. So the just get it done trap, we've all been there. You're like, they're so long, I just want to get in there and cut it. It's going to be stressful, but we'll get through it, and I'll give them cookies afterwards. Forcing the dog actually teaches the dog that this experience is fearful, and they'll start to show avoidance behavior. So while force may accomplish today's trim, it often creates resistance in the future. So we want to be really careful about just getting it done. And that includes by professionals. So I hear a lot from clients that, I have to take them to the vet for that. And then I ask questions about, what does that look like? Is it better? Oh, no, but they can handle him. And like Dr. Steinke said, the last thing we want is for our dog to be absolutely terrified when we're doing, anything physical to them. So behavior and emotion work together. We want dogs to participate willingly in their nail care and be comfortable. So what dogs do versus how dogs feel really can't be separated. Behavior is information. So whatever your dog is feeling, they are going to express that feeling with some behavior. All behavior has a function. So in in the husbandry vet care world, there's a term that is used called cooperative care. And what cooperative care is having the dog be a willing participant in their care, meaning they opt in and you have a way of letting them opt out so that they never feel like they're being forced into the situation. And all of this can happen through training. And a lot of it is building trust. So the dog has choice in the situation. The dog is communicating to you with their behavior. You're listening, right? You're communicating with them, and you're using a lot of positive reinforcement. So cooperative care is a training and handling approach that teaches animals to become active, willing participants in their own care rather than passive recipients of restraint or force. The goal is to create a predictable, low-stress process in which the animal has some degree of choice and control. And that word predictable is very important. You're going to hear it more and more. There's an acronym that I love, PPP, Predictable Patterns of Precedence. So what that means is I've done it before, my precedence, right? There's a pattern to what we're doing, so I understand what's coming, and therefore that makes the situation predictable. So predictable patterns of precedence. And so you can do this in a variety of ways with nail care. Do you have a question?
Does this come from like the change we see in zoos and stuff like that?
The change you see in food?
No, the changes from-
Zoos.
come from
Yes,
zoos.
absolutely. If you've ever seen the hyena up at the fence getting a blood draw, that's cooperative care, right? All of this comes from the zoo world. They're much smarter than us dog people. At least they were there before us, right? They were there doing all this work. Yeah.
Yeah, to force a tiger to do anything.
Yeah. And I will say to my clients all the time, if you had a bear living in your house, would you dare do what you're doing to your dog right now? No. So we should always, and this comes with any form of aggression, right? It doesn't even matter if we're talking about nails or not, but we never would want to do something to a wild animal like that we would do to our dogs sometimes. And it really puts the dog in a precarious situation. And I know they sleep in our bed and they're our pets, but we have to remember they're animals, right? And they're going to do animal things. So the more you can get them to participate, I mean, if you haven't seen the hyena getting a blood draw, you have to go home and Google it. It's awesome because those hyenas can be very scary. So the foundation of cooperative care is learning and behavior science. It's rooted in positive reinforcement. It uses gradual desensitization and counter conditioning, and I'm going to define those terms for you. But the emphasis is on helping the animal feel safe, understand what is happening, and communicate when they need a break. Okay. So part of the way we do that is through gradual desensitization, which is breaking a procedure down into tiny pieces and exposing the animal to those pieces at an intensity they can handle without becoming fearful or stressed. We gradually increase the difficulty only when the animal is comfortable with the current step. So we in training kind of refer to that as a criteria change. Nothing, you might be doing the same step, everything is the same, now it's going to change. Maybe there's a little bit more pressure you're putting on the dog's nail, or maybe this is the point where you're picking up the clippers where before you didn't have them in your hand. Any change is going up in the level of difficulty for the dog. Counter conditioning is the process of changing an animal's emotional response by pairing the experience with something they enjoy, such as high-value treats. Over time, procedures that once predicted discomfort or concern begin to predict good things, helping the animal feel safer and more willing to participate. So counter conditioning and gradual desensitization really go together. So animals learn things like start button behaviors, such as chin rest or stationing. So stationing would be like going to one of these platforms or going on a mat on the floor. Stationing also comes from the zoo world, right? If you've ever taught your dog to go to their place, go to their bed, that's kind of the idea behind it. But in cooperative care, we use this as this is the place where treatment happens when you station on this spot. Okay. Chin rests, we don't really use them in nail care unless you have a partner where your dog is trained to rest their chin in your hand, or you can teach the dog to rest their chin on something like this platform or a bench, right? I like those collapsible little stools, you know, that you can set up and stuff. Those work really great for chin rests for dogs. And the dog understands that when they put their chin on it, something's going to happen to them. And if they remove their chin, they want you to stop. That's their opt out. You can start. No, I want you to stop. Okay. The stationing behavior works the same. If the dog goes to the station, then they're saying, I know care happens here. And if they leave the station, they're going, oh, all of this feels like a little too much. I need a break. Okay. So this is what we mean by a start button, right? We teach the animal a process that they can communicate, I'm ready to begin, or I need a break. So animals are given opportunities to opt in or opt out. And if they opt out, that doesn't mean they can't get a cookie. Because we don't want opting out to mean I lose. Okay, so we can still give the dog a treat for opting out. And although nobody asked me for the study because I don't know where it is, but Ken Ramirez, who used to be at the Shed Aquarium and now he's the head of care and prior clicker training, he always talks about a study where the animals in the study, whenever they were given the option to opt out of something, they were more likely to come back and participate in the activity. So when we have choice and control and agency over our own bodies and our movements, we feel safer and more in control of ourselves rather than being controlled by someone else, and we're more willing to participate in the activity. So opting out is not a failure in your training plan. It's good. It's communication. Okay? Choice reduces fear and frustration, and greater control increases confidence and trust. This is control from the dog's control. And participation is prioritized over the dog complying with what you want to do. When I was first talking to my veterinarian many years ago about Adam's nails, she could see my stress, palpable. And she said to me, Kim, he's not going to die. I did the same thing. I laughed and I said, you're absolutely right. I've got time, right? There's no hurried rush with any of this. So I learned to take my time. And then all these years later, I've done a lot of formal education in cooperative care. And there's a saying in cooperative care that slow is fast. So if you're really looking for lifelong welfare, caring for your dog's paws and nails, you have to take things slow, because if you try to push it, you're not going to get anywhere very quickly. We always want to go at the animal's pace, and we're always trying to build positive associations. And there needs to be exposure that progresses systematically. And you're going to see in some of the videos that you're going to watch that I tend to have a rhythm in what I'm doing with my dog, and that rhythm alone really helped him. So some key principles of positive reinforcement. Food is king for most dogs. For Adam, when I did his cooperative care with his nails, he would get really worked up if I used anything higher value than his kibble. So at the time, like some of the videos you're going to see, you're going to hear me talking to the camera or talking about sharing the video with somebody. It was because there was a group of trainers who all had the same issue with their dogs. And we were getting together and sending video to each other and sharing, you know, successes and, oh God, this session was horrible, I need tips, you know, back and forth. And the food became so overwhelming for him that it was a trainer friend that said, you can't use anything other than kibble. And that's all we used. You can use play. So if you have a dog that for some reason is not food motivated, or like I have a client right now who's in our, we have a cooperative care club at Building Bonds, and her dog has got GI issues and right now has been on chicken and rice for a long time, and they're trying to transition over to a prescription kibble. So the dog only eats 3 things: chicken, rice, and prescription kibble. And she said, he just gets so aroused. And I said, what's the thing that he, values the least? And she said, the rice. I'm like, then train with rice only. Just give him a little rice ball, right? And that will be the training. So that's what she's doing. All that reinforcement strengthens desired behaviors. So the definition of positive reinforcement is adding something that the learner likes in order to increase the frequency of behavior. So if I'm able to hold my dog's paw, isolate the nail, and my dog stays still for that, and I reward that, then that means I'm adding something to food that the dog likes, and he's more likely to do that same behavior again in the future, okay? So it takes a lot of practice and repetition of doing these things with dogs for them to generate more positive emotional responses and want to partake in these activities. Consistent routines help animals understand what to expect. And you might see this in other aspects of your dog's life. Maybe it's your leash walk. Maybe you have a sensitive dog that likes to go the same route every day and that makes them more comfortable. Maybe it's visitors coming to the house. Maybe it's your routine when you go to the vet clinic. We have a routine when I go to the vet clinic. I don't think my current dogs have ever waited in a lobby before the vet clinic because they get us right in. But we went to an internal medicine consult and we had to wait in the lobby a long time in between. And my dog was just like, what is all this stuff here? He was really kind of stimulated by all the things that were in the lobby. It broke his routine. Predictable cues reduce uncertainty. So the stationing, for example, is a clear cue to your dog. When I put out the mat, things are going to happen. If you choose to get on it, things are going to happen. That's a very predictable cue. You can also do things like name your equipment. Trimmer, file, paw, nail, like you can spell it all out for your dog. Some dogs do really well when you name their body parts and then feed them. Like, I'm going to touch that body part, I'm going to name it, and I'm going to give you a treat. So then you're telling them what's going to happen to them before it happens. Paw, touch their paw, feed them a treat. So that way there's no misunderstanding or guessing or uncertainty if they have issues with being handled physically. You're telling them what's going to happen before it happens. It creates emotional safety for your dog. And that familiarity promotes confidence in the activity that you're doing with them. So we always look at comfort first because a relaxed dog learns and a stressed dog is just surviving the situation. They are too stressed out to learn, right? They're pushing all these hormones in their body and they just can't get it together to really learn, other than they don't feel safe in that situation. And they'll remember that, unfortunately. Progress is not linear. Very important when you're working with your dog and their nails or any sort of behavior change you're trying to implement with your dog. You're going to have good days, you're going to have setbacks, plateaus are normal, right? So we always think, oh, we're just going to keep going. And really sometimes it looks a little bit more like this, and then you finally get there. So reading your dog's body language is critically important. Like Dr. Steinke said, that dog that just goes still, that's not a dog saying that they feel safe. That's a dog like trying to avoid anything that could harm them. Like in the wild, if the dog, the way the nervous system works, if you get scared, the first thing you do is freeze, like you tense up, right? And like, maybe if I'm really quiet, like the wildlife won't get me. And then you try to flee, right? Try to get away. And if you can't, then you fight your way out of it. Some dogs also do a fourth F that I call the fidget fawn, right? The dog that, at the vet clinic that's like bouncing off the walls, jumping on the furniture, and, that's a stressed dog. A lot of people go, oh, he's just, a little crazy when he goes to the vet. Well, your dog's a little stressed when they go to the vet. So things like lip licking, when a dog sticks their tongue out of their mouth, especially repeatedly. You're going to see a video of my dog Adam doing that. They'll turn their head away, right? They're like, oh, I don't even want to look at what you're doing. When a dog turns their head away, that is their way, it's called a cutoff signal of cutting off the social interaction. I really don't want what you're bringing. So if you go to meet a dog, you're like, oh, they're so cute, and the dog looks away, you should back off. That's the dog saying, you're making me uncomfortable. 2 dogs go to meet nose to nose, and 1 dog averts their look, turns to the side. That dog's a little uncomfortable with the nose to nose greeting. Okay. So lookaways are very common in nail care because you might be there with your dog on their treatment station, and then they are, no, I don't want you to do it. They're not leaving the treatment station, but they're totally looking away from you. That could be a sign of stress. And refusing food is always good information because that means your dog's so stressed that their appetite shuts down and they don't want to eat.
So back to where, so they're on the treatment station, they look away, you don't feed them.
You can feed them, but you don't want to continue whatever it is you're doing with them physically. You stop that, but you can still feed them because that's a dog opting out, and they shouldn't get punished by not getting a cookie just for saying no thank you. Then they might be more willing after they opt out and you've given them a cookie to go, okay, I'm ready to try this again. Because that's a big deal if the dog chose to only look away and not get up and leave.
With our dog, especially with the thunder and the rain and stuff, you got a little wolf thing, you put that thing inside to keep them active.
Popsicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And he, during the stressful times, he injects it. I'll put it right there, put a little peanut butter on top of it. So and then I'll back away. And then he won't even look at it. But I turn this way and look the other way. A couple seconds later, I look back down, and now he's looking at it. He's engaged with it.
So if you're hiking in the woods and you stop for a picnic, you're like, oh, that was a big hike, I'm starving. You unwrap your sandwich and you look up and there's a bear coming at you. You take off running. You're not running and eating your sandwich at the same time, right? Because you're in survival mode. Your brain just kicks into survival mode, shuts down your appetite. You were hungry, no longer you're hungry. And now all your energy has to be used for survival. That's what's happening with our dogs when their stress level gets so high. It's their body, they can't control it. It's not actively refusing it. Like it's his brain, right? It's his nervous system.
Thank you.
Sure. So this is from Fear Free. Fearfree.com is a great website to visit. They have a pet parent version of Fear Free called Fear Free Happy Homes. That's got a lot of free training advice on there if you want to check that out. And they have a really great short body language video on there that you can watch as well. I think it's like 4 or 5 minutes long. But the green dog, we all know the stoplight. Green means go, red means stop. So we want dogs to have soft and loose muscles. Okay. Oftentimes, depending on how much fur your dog has, you can see on some dogs like their brow furrowing, above their eyes. You can see like pit bulls. You can always see it on the top of their head, right? They get all these wrinkles when they're stressed. But you can see, like, if you look just nose to tail, like, how are they moving, right? Are they stiff when they're moving or are they soft? So soft and loose is relaxed. And stressed, they might even have their jaw really tense or their lips will kind of purse back in the corner. This is a dog you want to stop if they're showing any signs of that. The eyes will also change. So a nice relaxed dog has an almond-shaped eye. The pupils are normal. It feels soft. And then in a stressed dog, their pupils dilate. They might stare, like a prolonged staring at you or something else. They might avoid eye contact. And then dogs do something with their eyes we call whale eye. And that might be where they're kind of looking at you out of the corner of their eye and you see the whites of their eyes. If you look at your dog normally, like all of us, we can look at each other and see the whites of our eyes. But if you look at a dog who's not stressed, you're not going to see the whites of their eyes. But it's like they're trying not to take their eye off of something that's, worrying them, and they're kind of giving this side look, and you'll see the whites of their eyes. We tend to see that a lot in dogs who resource guard. like they're trying to protect their bone or something like that. So they're like, somebody gonna steal my stuff. We want to see their ears kind of neutral. Sometimes though, dogs will pin their ears back a little bit, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're stressed in a bad way, because I've seen dogs like, wiggling when their owners come home and their ears go back, right? So there's conflict, I think, that happens sometimes, right? So you have to kind of look at the whole body. But typically we will see dogs have their ears kind of flat to their head and really pinned back when they're stressed. And obviously it depends on what breed of dog you have, right? How their ears are on their head. We want to see a flexible posture. We don't want to see a rigid, stiff dog. When the tail is level with the dog's top line, that is a pretty neutral dog, okay? The higher the tail starts to go above their top line, the more arousal there is, okay? If they're really high above the top line and it's stiff, that's not the good kind of arousal. That's your bad stress kind of arousal. But sometimes you'll see a dog do that when they're like on prey, right? Really stiff. And prey drive is not aggression, right? But it's a high level of arousal. I think we all know the tucked tail is a really scared and nervous dog. So that higher above the top line arousal, if you have a dog that has a propensity to bite, beware, right? If you have the dog that's, tucking their tail and scared, beware, because a scared dog can also bite, right? So we want to really be careful. And then mouth open or closed, lips long and soft and relaxed. If your dog's mouth was open and then all of a sudden they close it, like you go to touch their paw and all of a sudden they close their mouth when their mouth had been open, that's a sign that, something just changed, right? The dog noticed it, right? Now, depending on where you are in your training plan, you might go, okay, you didn't like that, and take your hand away, and then voila, their mouth opens. But let's say you're fairly confident, like my dog can handle this, right? And I'm going to touch their paw, their mouth was open and it closes, and then you keep your hand there for 1 second and then their mouth opens again. So sometimes you have to play around with these things, right? And know the dog that you're working with to say, how resilient are you to work through that level of stress? Do you trust me enough to work through that, right? So if my dog does one of these things on here, I might not worry. But if my dog is doing all of these things or 2 or 3 of these things, like I have to change what I'm doing immediately because my dog is stressed. And we are sending with you a fear, anxiety, and stress scale. So after the event, you're going to get an email that will have a few resources. And this is one of them. So this was the same image that Dr. Steinke shared. Think of the stoplight. So over here on the right, green is continue, yellow is slow down, use caution, red is stop. Okay, so if a dog is presenting with a fear, anxiety, stress level of 0 to 1, they might show mild signs of stress, right? But they're able to quickly recover, like I just described with the mouth being open and then closed and then opens again. We might continue care. We probably would continue care with that dog. But if we start to see a FAS level of 2 to 3, where we're seeing lots of head lookaways, things like that, heavy increase in panting, the respiration rate gets really fast, you're really seeing a lot of stress in that dog. That might be where you stop and go, okay, maybe we should get some medication on board for this dog and help this dog out. Or we need to change what we're doing to make the dog feel more comfortable. Could we insert some food into this situation, right, to make them feel more comfortable? And then a red dog, you definitely want to stop everything and come up with a new plan. Yes.
I have a dog who has very thick black nails that grow very fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when he is groomed, because I'm not comfortable, that's one of the reasons I'm here.
Yeah.
You going after those kinds of nails. After each paw is done, he wags his tail and licks the person. But while it's being done, he's kind of stiff. But as soon as that one paw is done, he licks the groomer.
He licks the groomer.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then and wags his tail. and then they go on to the next one.
Yeah.
So obviously he's a little stressed while it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. But then he's just fine. And then when it's all over, he's like, "Hi."
Or is it?
Fine is an acronym for me. Fluffy is not enthusiastic. So a lot of people use that word fine. And if your dog is not excited, like you just put their food bowl out, not enthusiastic about it, they are not okay.
Well, when I say fine, I mean, he seems to be very happy. Okay, when he goes into the groomer,
Yeah.
okay, he literally jumps up on the thing and says, okay, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's showing fear.
Yeah. But that experience, I think, for him is uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. So you might do some things to make it more pleasurable for him by maybe pairing some food with that
I
experience.
do. I give him food
While she's trimming that paw, you're feeding him. Okay. I would increase the value of it.
Okay.
These things are awesome, or anything like it. This is called bark pouch. So sardines and cream cheese. Everybody wants a lick, right?
Yeah.
They're really gross, disgusting things that dogs love. You'll see in one of the videos coming up, I use baby food for Adam, and it's like broccoli and spinach because he loved broccoli and spinach. And so I would use little baby food pouches for him. So maybe increase the value of the food and maybe ask her to take a break mid-paw. You know, trim 2 nails, let me give him a lick of this, you know, trim the rest, and I'll give him a lick. Break it down into smaller pieces for him, and you might see a change in how he'll get excited when that last nail gets clipped, like that second nail, and look to you like, okay, now's the time, right? So you build the predictability into the process for him, and then he'll start to have an expectation. That licking that he's doing of her is kind of what we would refer to as submissive behavior. Like almost like, thank you for not hurting me, right? I feel very vulnerable, right? And so you're the one in control. The groomer is the one in control. The dog's not in control. And so that's him like trying to avoid conflict. Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead.
You're mentioning to give them, say, a treat after each one of these events. And I've thought of treating like that as a way to train them, so eventually you don't have to treat them. Is this a situation where you just continue, okay, every time they have their nails done, we're going to do treats?
It depends on the dog. Yeah. So I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to walk you through the process of how you do it. But some dogs, you know, you're doing 1 nail treat, 2nd nail treat, 3rd nail treat, you know, and then you get to the point where I can do 2 nails, I can do 3 nails, then I can do the whole paw and give them a treat. But what we're looking for along the way is how is the dog responding the entire way through the process? Because I, as a human with the big brain, I can come up with a training plan and go, okay, we're going to do 1 nail treat. Then the next session, we're going to do 2 nails treat. And then the next one, we're going to do 3 nails treat. But the dog is not coming along with my training plan. The dog is still going, okay. I want the dog to be like, okay, go ahead. Where's my treat? Right? And then you can get through all of it. The dog's happily doing it. Then you know you can make it more difficult for the dog going forward. So it might be you trim all 4 paws and then the dog gets a licky mat with peanut butter on it or baby food or cream cheese or something. So you can gradually over time go from I'm going to treat the dog for every nail to then it's every paw, then it's I'm going to do your front paws and then you're going to get something and then your back paws. And then when it's all done, you're going to get the licky mat. And then eventually it's like, you're just going to get the licky mat when we're all done because the dog is showing you throughout that process, I'm good. I know what's happening and they're not stressed.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and take questions at the end once you get to this. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So this QR code here, if you scan it, or if you want to remember, you can go to YouTube and Fear Free Happy Homes has a really nice video tutorial on how to train a treatment station. Because I'm not going to teach you how to do that today, but you're also going to, in the email afterwards, you are going to get a handout that details how you train your dog to go onto a treatment station. Because having a treatment station is a really good foundation for having the dog's nails done. This is my current dog, Frances. And on the right, here she is at a loyal companion, getting a massage by Kate on her treatment station mat. This is a duration behavior, right? Getting a massage, right? It's not a one and done clip a nail and you leave the mat. So when she leaves the mat, when she's here getting her massage, she's telling Kate, I need a break. And we give her the opportunity to come back. And if she chooses to not come back to the mat, massage is done, right? We don't continue on. On the left side, she's on her treatment station. And here I'm using a remote feeder. And that's a veterinarian giving her acupuncture. So she has to lay there for 20 minutes after all those needles are put in. And so she lays there on the treatment station for that with her little remote feeder that delivers her a piece of kibble about every 30 seconds, okay? So they can be very, very good predictors of things happening to the dog. And one time my veterinarian came to the house to do the acupuncture and she grabbed the mat for me and put it down and I turned around and my dog was already like, when the mat goes to the floor, I get on the mat. That's how it works. Did everybody get the QR code if you wanted it? Okay. So again, the treatment station is a designated space that gives the dog predictability. Care happens there and the dog has control. They're opting in by being on it or they're opting out by leaving it. So this is an example of my current dog, again, Frances, Beagle Boy over there in the back, Jasper. He gets very excited about it. I do all my training together with the two of them. That's just how we roll. So I'm using 2 mats. Jasper's job is to stay on his treatment station and leave me alone while I try to trim Frances's nails. Okay, that's his role. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video. Maybe.
Oh, good girl, Francie Fancies. Good girl. So good.
See how she just gets right on it? They both try to get right on it.
So awesome.
And he's like, where's the food? I'm going to get it. I get it by going to my mat. He leaves. And I'm waiting for him. I'm like, do your thing. There we go. He waits there, and then I trim her nail. She gets a cookie, he gets a cookie. And that's pretty much how nail trims go in my house all the time with these 2 dogs.
I hate you.
I know. But I'll tell you a story, you might hate me more. Frances has these really thick paw pads, they're almost like cat feet. And they started to crack. And I didn't realize it was happening. And I went to trim her nails one day and she growled at me. And I have the type of dog that doesn't growl at me or anybody else. And I was like, something's going on here. So then that's how I discovered her paw pads were cracked. And so then after that, my dog didn't want her nails being trimmed. So I kind of had to like start over and do all these things I'm going to tell you about. But one of the things that I did for her that I watched another trainer on YouTube something. Her name's Lin Cao, C-A-O. She has this great like 1 hour plus YouTube video on using pattern games for cooperative care. And my dog knows the walking game 1, 2, 3. I count out loud and on 3 I feed a treat. 1, 2, 3, treat. 1, 2, 3, treat. So I was like, I'm going to use this to trim her nail. 1, I'm going to touch your paw. 2, I'm going to isolate the nail. 3, I'm going to cut it. And I did it and she went, what just happened here? And then I gave her her treat. And then when I went to do the second nail the same exact way, she just let me do it. So all this like counter conditioning work I was trying to do, I did that one thing, a very predictable structure that I just inserted into this thing that was hard for her, and she knew exactly what to expect, and my problem was solved. So what I want to show you today with the videos that are coming up and the tools that I'm going to introduce to you is that there's not just one way to trim your dog's nails or take care of your dog's nails. Sometimes you don't even have to use clippers. It's possible. So we want to break it down into small approximations. And I'm going to introduce to you the concept of gentle control and gradient touch. So this is handling that's introduced gradually and systematically. So if my goal is to, touch my dog's paw, I might want to start up here at their shoulder, okay, rather than going straight for the dog's paw. So we want to progress, adjust any duration of time we're spending on that body part, any pressure that we're putting on the body part, any intensity that we're applying to the situation. And we want to allow dogs to build tolerance through having successful approximations, right? I'm going to touch your shoulder. Here's a cookie. I'm going to touch this part of your leg. Here's a cookie. I'm going to touch the top of your paw. Here's a cookie. I'm going to hold your paw. Here's a cookie. This can create predictable routines for your dog. That handling is safe and yummy, right? I'm feeding the dog food through all of those small approximations till eventually I can just take my hand, stroke it down my dog's leg, take my hand across their paw or cup their paw in my hand, and my dog thinks nothing of it. Because I've done small approximations and built up to that over time, and they're not afraid of it. So some dogs you have to start with just your hand approaching them. Because some dogs are like, what are you going to do to me? I don't trust your hands, right? So I might show the dog my hand, feed the dog a cookie. Show the dog my hand, feed the dog a cookie. Then you can go to brief touch, feed the dog a cookie. Longer touch, feed the dog a cookie. So on and so forth, from pressure to maybe moving the body part, maybe simulating the procedure but not actually doing it, and then eventually the real procedure. So it's this systematic progression to get there. You always want to start with easier body parts. So if your dog has body sensitivity somewhere else, start practicing on a part of their body they don't have an issue with, so that they can understand the process of how this game works, right? How the structure works, and then gradually get to those parts of the body where they might have a harder time. The shoulders, chest, and sides are often the easiest for most dogs, but not true for every dog. You want to avoid immediately starting with their paws, and for some dogs, their ears, their tail, or their face. And then we build confidence first before we increase the difficulty, which for all of your dogs, I'm assuming is their paws. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Always pairing that touch with reinforcement. Touch predicts good things. So we need to build that in. And if it helps, let's say your dog doesn't always wear their collar. If you go to put their collar on them, you're touching them, you're being invasive. Give them a cookie afterwards. Putting on their harness, give them a cookie afterwards. You moving into their space, right? Whatever you can do to help them generalize that, hey, when my person touches my body, they're safe and they give me good stuff. You always want to pause after your repetitions, especially if you have a plan up here. Sometimes we move faster, right? And we're not necessarily paying attention to the dog. And then I've got a video in here of me doing exactly that because I wanted to show you I'm not perfect. And then we want to observe their body language, assess tension and relaxation, allow processing time for the dog. Like my dog with that 1, 2, 3 with her paws, she looked at me like, what just happened here, right? I let her process that, and then I did it again, and she was like, I got it. I know what we're doing. And we always want to adjust those criteria changes thoughtfully. In training, we always say we want to slice it really thin, all the steps. And so you might give me 10 steps. If I have clients do this with me, I'll say, write me the steps of how you're going to do this. And then they'll bring it to me, and then I'll say, okay, you have 8 steps. I want you to give me 16 now. Like make them like, what will you do if this happens, right? You have to break it down even smaller for your dog so that it makes it really easy for them. We always want to allow movement. Let the dog move around and leave if that's what they need to do. Respect any disengagement that they offer. Use these start button behaviors like the stationing on a mat. Offer predictable patterns because all that choice is going to reduce conflict and build trust with you handling them. Timing matters. Touch them first, feed them next. There's Sometimes it's necessary or okay to feed the dog while the thing is happening to them. So with Adam, the dog that I shared with you in the very beginning, when we went to the vet, he would wear a muzzle. A vet tech would feed him through the food part of the muzzle, and then the veterinarian would clip a nail. Okay, so we used a distraction technique, right, to do that. Okay, for some dogs that will work just fine. If that's your dog, good, great, wonderful. For some dogs, this can poison the food. Whenever something scary is going to happen, they whip the food out. Okay, so we don't want to poison the food. So ideally, it would be I get the dog comfortable enough to the place where the veterinarian can pick their paw up and cut it, and then give the food, right? That's the ideal scenario, that they're comfortable enough for that. So when you're doing the handling with your dog, you always want to get them comfortable enough to touch them and then feed them after. So I often start at the shoulder. And I show the dog my hands approaching their shoulder. I'll feed them. Then I'll briefly touch them. I'll do a longer touch, a little bit of gentle pressure, and then a light stroking motion. And I will do all of this on the treatment station, if I haven't made that clear. All of this handling happens on the treatment station. You might spend weeks or a month just doing, handling on the treatment station and getting your dog comfortable with, my person touches me here and food happens here, and that's okay. And then you can transition into handling their paw. So again, shoulder, leg, lower leg, brief paw touch, a lifting up of their paw briefly, holding their paw a little bit longer, and simulating the nail trim, which usually is isolating that nail, right? Getting them comfortable with all of those steps. Insert food after each one, okay? So we want the dog to know what is happening, how they participate in it, how they can ask for a break, that they can trust the process, and that this is a partnership between the two of you. It's just like any other training game you would play with them. So choice changes everything for dogs, and we want to ask them to participate in this and not force them. Because what happens is that we end up flooding them often, which is like teaching a kid how to swim by throwing them into the pool.
Don't do that with your dog either.
Don't do that with your dog either.
Yep.
Yeah. Forcing restraint. I just, in my cooperative care class this morning, somebody said to me, why are dogs having such a hard time with their paws? And I said, there could be a lot of reasons for sensitivity, but I do think some dogs view it as a form of restraint. That they can't get away, right? And the paws are sensitive, right? So it's really troubling for them because they can feel overpowered. And we never want to pin or hold a dog down. We don't want to punish them, scold them, yell at them, call them back over forcefully if they decide to leave or ignore their body language. Common mistakes are just moving too fast through the process. Slow is fast. You really do want to take your time. You don't want to ignore subtle stress signals. Using restraint too early, so grabbing onto that paw too early and holding it for too long. Your sessions can be too long. Practicing can be too long. Sometimes dogs fatigue. They're like, this is a lot for me to handle, right? So a cooperative care session can be a minute. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It can be a minute, right? It's all about the quality of that experience for the dog. And we don't want to repeat when we make a mistake. If it was stressful for the dog, we don't want to repeat that same step. Go back to where it was easy for them. So this is Adam, this video here of me handling his paws. This was a dog where he would growl at me if I even tried to touch his paws. So I'm going to play that video now. And this was all done one touch, stroke, hold, isolating the nail, treat at a time. Going back to your question, do I have to give a treat for every single nail for the rest? No. For this, I did not have to do that at all. He let me handle his feet.
Does he have any drugs on him?
No, he's just sleeping there.
And how?
And
long
that's
did
a
it
really
take?
good question because at home I never used drugs with him. When we'd go to the vet clinic, I did use drugs for him because he really wanted to kill every veterinarian he ever. And I told him they're our favorite people, but he didn't understand. But at home, no, I did not. I did not use any medication. Yeah, I did find with my dog who had the paw pad issue. One time I tried medication with her when I was going through the counter conditioning process before I did the 1, 2, 3 game. And I had some situational medication, fast acting stuff. You know, you give it to your dog and then it's out of their system after so many hours. And she did really well with her nail trim that day, right? So, you know, sometimes these things can facilitate the progress because the dog doesn't feel stressful because they've got this anxiolytic drug on board. And that's a conversation you should have with your vet, right? Yeah. So I always look at cooperative care as building a trust account. It's like making deposits. And when you screw up and make a mistake, you're making a withdrawal, right? We don't want our dog's trust accounts to be in the red. We need them to be in the black. Less is more and one nail can be a win. So if you currently have a dog who's really stressed out about nails, set aside the idea that it has to be the whole paw or all 4 paws or all the front or all the back or whatever. If you can get your dog to successfully participate in having 1 nail trimmed, that's a win because then you're building on that, right? You want that, you want to replicate how that played out for your dog the next time and the next time and the next time. What I did for my dog, Adam, was I would take him to the vet and they would trim 1 nail and we'd go home. That's what I did. And then I would file his nail, the 1 nail that was cut, I would maintain it. And I was working on my cooperative care at home on that 1 nail, right? And then we'd get our next one cut. This is how we started. It's not how we ended, but it's how we started. So there are so many tools to maybe some you haven't heard of before. So scratch boards. How many of you have heard of scratch boards? Okay, handful or so. You can buy them now, like on Amazon. They're wood boards that have like a gritty sandpaper material on them. And then a lot of them have a little box that you put a treat behind it. And so the dog smells the treat, the dog's trying to get the treat and will scratch the box or the board. I, 13 years ago, made my own scratch boards, which I still own. So I brought them for you. I just did some wood and got some spray glue, and I could choose the grit that I wanted. So you always want to start at the finest grit when you're first starting. So you could do like a 40 grit, right, on this. This is 60. And then once your dog gets better at it, then you can increase the grit. So that would be a criteria change, right? So this one happens to be 80. These work really great on the front paws, right? This would work just fine on the front paws. You can do it slanted, like you can hold it, or you'll see when I play this video, these dogs are doing it flat on the ground. I put a mat underneath there on the tile floor so it wouldn't slip. If you make your own, you can also get the wood a little bit longer. You can have it cut longer, more scratch paper on it. And then you put the wood up against like your bed, have this be slanted, and then lure the dog up with a treat, and they will take their back paw and scratch it on the back. And that's how you get them to file their back legs. So really handy to help, you know, keep those nails maintained. So I'm going to play this video of Adam and my dog Marky. You could see the little tails. I mean, they were having fun, right? It should be a fun game.
How did you get them to switch nails? Switch paws?
That's a little trickier, but I teach my dog paw, other paw. Paw, other paw. And I would usually teach it by pointing. And I wouldn't, like, if they always gave me the same paw, I wouldn't reinforce them for that. I would say other paw, and then they will gradually, or you can take the food at that paw down towards the board and have the dog try to get the treat out of your hand, and they'll scratch, right? And then you add the other paw, or you can say right or left, right? It's pretty easy to teach that. Nail files. Adam's nails were mostly maintained for a long time with nail files. They're my favorite. So this is your average like human nail file, right, that you would use at home. Okay, very fine grit, not very rough at all. And this is what I started with him. And then we ended up upgrading to these acrylic nail files, which are more coarse. And I bought these on Amazon, I'm not kidding, 13 years ago. And I still have like this whole package of them. So you can share them with your friends. But they're really awesome. And you're going to see video of me using them with Adam. You would introduce the tools to your dog, right? The file board, right? Or the clippers, the same way that you're introducing your touch, right? Here's the file, have a cookie. It's moving closer to your paw, have a cookie, right? I'm isolating your nail, I'm touching this there, have a cookie. Touching it, have a cookie. Swiping it, and it's really gentle in the beginning. Like you don't want the dog to have any big response, but eventually you're swipe, 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 cookie, swipe, 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 cookie. Then how many more swipes can I get in there before I give the dog a cookie? So there's one other thing I wanted to show you. Some dogs can be a little bit sensitive. I use this on Adam as well. It's a drywall sponge. And so it's softer, right, than these hard things. You can get them, this is a fine grit, but you can also get them, they call it medium, most vendors, or coarse. But it has a little bit more give to it, right? A little more comfortable for you to hold too sometimes. So these work really well. And this video, it's a little bit long, this video, but I included it in this presentation because I'm talking to the camera. I don't know who I shared this video with. So I'm talking to the camera. Adam's treatment station was on the couch. That's what he decided in the long run. He liked me to do his nails on the couch. So that's where we're at. I want you to, you can pay attention to what I'm saying in the video, but I want you to pay attention to this rhythm I have as I'm filing his nails, and pay attention to his body. Hi guys, I'm going to go ahead and play that video.
I'm here with my dog Adam, and I'm here to show you his latest way to get his nails to a desirable length. And Adam has quite a history of not liking his touch, and certainly not liking nail trims. So we have all sorts of options for him. Including desensitizing him and counter conditioning him to the nail clippers, a Dremel. We've also made a scratch board for him. So he will file his own nails on a scratch board. That is a fun way for him to get his nails done, but it's not the most effective because Adam tends to file his own nails a bit unevenly. So I've been working on using this little tool. I call it a filing sponge, but it's really a sanding sponge. And you can buy these at your local hardware store, and they come in different grips. Find them in the painting section. You can also make your own filing sponge by taking a piece of wood and gluing some sandpaper to it. Gun, but you do want to be careful. You can use a staple gun, but you do want want to be careful that your dog, when they file their nails on the block, that they're not getting their nail caught in a staple.
You can also take a painter stick.
You can
and duct
also
tape
take
or
a painter
glue,
stick and duct tape or
sandpaper, your
glue,
desired grip
sandpaper,
onto a
with your
painter
desired
stick, and you've
grip
got yourself a nice
onto a
homemade
painter
nail
stick, and you've
file.
got yourself a nice homemade
So,
nail file.
all of these are
So,
great
all of
low
these
stress ways
are
to get
great
your dog's nails
low
where you
stress
need them
ways to
be.
get your dog's
And
nails
so,
where you need them
Adam,
to be.
we
And
were
so,
doing really well
Adam,
with nail trims for him,
we
and
were
recently
doing really
we
well
had a
with nail
couple
trims
of
for him,
very
and
stressful
recently we
nail
had a
trims.
couple of
So
very
I
stressful
decided I
nail
was going to
trims.
start to
So
take advantage
I decided I was
of
going to
some of
start
the
to
things
take
that he likes
advantage
and really
of
commit
some of the
myself
things
to
that he
doing
likes
them,
and really
you know,
commit
every
myself
other
to
day or
doing them,
so. So in
you
the
know,
morning,
every other
when
day
I
or
have
so.
my
So
coffee,
in the
this
morning,
is how he
when
gets
I have
his
my
breakfast.
coffee, this is how he
And
gets his
we just play
breakfast.
a little nail filing
And
game.
we just play a
So,
little nail filing game.
Adam does show
And so,
some mild stress. If you
Adam
notice
does
in
show
this video,
some mild stress. If you
wanna
notice
watch
in
it
this
again,
video, if you
he
want
will
to
do a
watch it
little bit
again,
of lip licking.
he will do a little bit of
And
lip
over
licking.
time,
And over
he's
time,
hopefully going to get more comfortable with
he's
this.
hopefully going to
And
get
we
more
won't see those
comfortable with
stress
this.
signals
Because
from
we can
him,
see those stress signals
because
him.
we're going to take it at a pace that
Because
he's
we're
comfortable
going
with.
to take it at a pace that he's
So,
comfortable with.
what I tend to do is
So
when I see him
what I
stressed
tend
out a
to
little
do
bit,
is when I
with
see
the
him
tongue
stressed
licking,
out a little
I'll
bit,
decrease the
with the
amount of
tongue
swipes I'm
licking,
doing on
I'll
his
decrease
nail
the amount of
and
swipes I'm doing on
give
his
him his
nail
reinforcement
and
for allowing me to do
give him
that.
his reinforcement for allowing
So,
me to do that.
This is a huge
So,
improvement
this
for
is
Adam,
a huge
because Adam
improvement for Adam.
has been
Because
known
Adam
to growl and attempt to
has
bite
been known
when
to
having
growl and
his
attempt
feet
to fight
handled,
when
and
having his
especially if
feet
there are
handled,
nail clippers
and especially
involved.
if there
So
are nail clippers
we're not
involved.
quite where we
So
want to be just yet.
we're not
but
quite
we've
where we
seen a
want
lot
to
of
be
great
just
progress
yet,
with him,
but we've seen a lot of great progress with
happier.
them,
I couldn't
and
be
you couldn't be
happier. So
happier.
I hope that
I
you learned something from this video today.
So I hope that you learned
And
something from this
thank you
video
to my
today,
dog Adam for
and
being such a
thank you
champ
to my dog Adam
and
for
letting
being
him
such a
be
champ.
your demo dog
Letting
today. And
be
again,
your
this
demo
is
dog
the nail
today.
sponge you
And
can buy
again,
at your
this
local
is the
hardware
nail
store.
sponge you can buy
It is
at
my
your
new
local
favorite
hardware
thing in
store.
the world.
It is my new
All
favorite
right,
thing.
thanks everybody for watching.
All right, thanks everybody for watching.
So you might have noticed that the minimum number of swipes I did was 3 and the maximum was 6. So we had like this rhythm. And so if I started to see him get a little bit tongue flicking out, or any sort of body language change, I went back down to 3 swipes, made it shorter, and kept feeding him. He didn't leave. You're going to see later in my mistake video where I pushed him too far. He had a very clear way. He only ever did this with me. Everybody else, he would growl at them and try to snap. But he has like a grumble that he would do with me, like the precursor to the growl, right? I'm going to warn you, it's coming. I put this in here to show you. This is him on a treatment station on the floor. So he's on a mat. And I've got 3 nail clippers laying out on the ground. I've got my sanding sponge. And then you'll see here, this is my DIY duct tape sandpaper on a paint stick. Okay, so you don't have to spend a lot of money, to create these little tools for yourself. But when I would do his nails, even if I was just filing, I'd put all the stuff out. Because if your dog is like a lot of dogs where they see this in your hands and they're like, oh, I'm running from her, right? So I actually went to the 99-cent store when it was in business. And one day I just bought every nail clipper they had on the rack. I had them on the coffee table. I had them one inside of his crate. I had one on top of his crate. I just had them everywhere all around the house. So it was never like, oh, she went into the drawer and she got that thing out and now this is going to happen, this thing I don't like. So we'd be on the couch and we'd be snuggling and petting him and I'd pull the nail clippers and do absolutely nothing to him. And the sponge, the filing that I would do with him, I used to call that my morning meditation, because I would literally we would just get into a groove. I'd be having my coffee, feed him his breakfast, and I would be filing his nails. So I'm going to show you, there's 2 videos. The body language is a little bit different in each, which is why I included both. So I'm going to show you the first video.
Hi guys, I'm here with my dog Adam, and I'm here to show.
He's offering me his paw. So I said paw and he gave it to me.
Paw.
So I'm asking him if he will give it to me. He's thinking that chin rest. That's what he's trying to put he was trying to put his chin in my hand because he was just learning that. So I made those swipes a little shorter, right? Because he was a little hesitant. Wasn't sure what he was supposed to do. I wanted to make sure he was buying into it. This one, I tried to do other paw with him, and he tried to give me the same paw that I was doing before. So I just went with it. So I asked him for something. He said, no, I want you to do this one. And I went, oh, play that video for you.
I don't think so, Mom.
Right? Yeah. Better than his teeth coming at me, though, right? Like, nope, I want you to do this one. But look at his body language. He won't look. He's not looking at me anymore. His eyes are blinking a lot. He's done, right? He's finished. He doesn't want to do it anymore. We already talked about the nail files. I kind of skipped ahead there, but I want to show you, this is me using this really coarse nail file on him, this one here. And I'm getting some good swipes in on him. So I'm going to play that video for you. And I'm never taking my thumb off that nail. I'm isolating it the whole time because I don't want all of that movement. I want to isolate the nail as I'm putting that pressure on. See the tongue flicks?
So you stick with one nail. You don't go jump from one nail next to the next. You stick.
If that nail is short, I'll go to another nail. Or if he's shown a little intolerance, like I think you're done with that one, mommy, please move on. I'll go to the next nail. I usually would try to focus on the nails I had trimmed with the trimmers. So I would trim them with the trimmers and then I would shorten them a little bit with the file. Yeah. Dremels are amazing and they can also be scary for your dog. But I will tell you something miraculous that happened with Adam. This is the Dremel that I bought specifically for nail trims. I don't think they make it anymore. This is the micro Dremel, but it has a light on it. See the light there? Yeah. So it's cool because it would help me see as quick, right? Otherwise, I would wear a book light on me. I would clip a book light on me so I could get a really good view. But this is loud. Right? Really, really loud. And he growled at me the first time I even turned it on, like, don't you even think about it, lady. But the more I did all of this work with him, the filing, he generalized it to the Dremel. One day I just brought the Dremel back out and I went, I wonder how he would, after we've done all this work, how he would respond to it. And he let me Dremel his nails. So I'm going to show you that.
Boy. Here's a freebie. Good boy. All right.
Notice the rhythm of how I'm doing it, the same way I would file his nails. I'm not leaving it on there. Boom, 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 boom,
Good boy. Okay, let's send that to Lynn. Let's send it. Good boy.
I miss him.
For quick aside, if you just leave a Dremel on two, like it's gonna get hot.
Yeah.
So like the next time you would like do that same thing where you just wait for little swipes.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for saying that. I think that's where a lot of people make an error is they leave it on the nail and it burns, gets hot. Yeah. This is me dremeling him. Again, it's a little bit of a closer view, which is why I included it. Play that as soon as I find it. There we go.
Good boy.
Oh. And I'm switching nails. You'll see I'm going to different nails with the dremel.
All right, we'll send her that one too.
I'll send her that one too. So you're going to make mistakes because we're human, right? We might miss something, like the dog shows us with body language and we push them too far. So one mistake doesn't ruin the process as long as you haven't done anything really egregious, to hurt your dog. All you want to do is lower your criteria, go back to where they were last successful or end that session, right? And the next time be really generous with your reinforcement and low criteria, low expectations for your dog to build their confidence back up if you made a mistake. So I've included this video to show you how rude I was to my dog, and I did not listen to his body language and I kept going. Play that. You can already see his respiration's up, right? Looking away. Head turn away. Pull the claw away. Fine, I'll just go to the other claw. Does he look happy? Actually towards the end, because I'm using the Dremel. Because the Dremel was the last part in the process. Yeah, so conditions can change, right? He can say on one day, oh, I'm not having it. And because my arrogance, because all the other times before you saw the videos of him happily letting me do all this stuff to him, I just kept going. And watched me do it again. Right? Do it again. The rumble. And look at what I did. Yeah, real breach of trust right there that I did with him. But I included this because I think it's important to show that, we humans kind of get in our head that we have to get to end goal and we don't listen to the dog, right? I'm not immune to that. I've done it. But those subtle signs of body language you really have to pay attention to, because all those subtle signs build up to that. I'm done.
We're all done. We're done.
So, if you're convinced to clip and actually use nail clippers, I would like to introduce you to a Facebook group. It's not a scary group, I promise. But this QR code should take you there. The group is called Nail Maintenance for Dogs. It's got like 160,000 members in it. It was started by a dog trainer named Sheena Neal, and it got so big. She couldn't maintain it anymore. So she archived it and she turned it into a course. So you can go in there and open up all the files. Like she has it organized in sections. and she recommends all the different dog clippers, all the different Dremels. She teaches you how to trim the dog's nails. She teaches you about counter conditioning and desensitization. It's a tremendous free resource, right? She shows you diagrams and pictures of the nail, like the cut line that Dr. Steinke showed you. It's really, really a great, great resource. If you look around online, there are some online courses that you can take here and there on, how to trim your dog's nails. I find a lot of those things are very mechanical, right? Like how to do it. But if your dog has big feelings about having their nails cared for, you really have to follow a systematic process. These happen to be my favorite nail clippers. And even on that 75-pound shepherd, Adam, this is what I used on him. And what I would do is just take a sliver off at a time. I wasn't doing big cuts. And they don't make that crunching sound that happens a lot with nails. They're very quiet. They cut like butter, especially when they're new. So I really like these a lot. And the actual model name is there on the slide. They're the Miller's Forge Steel 74 3C for small or medium dogs. My second favorite, and my dog Francis's favorite too, because she chewed them. These are from Safari. I really like these a lot, although I can't get these to open right now because it's locked. They're green. They always have a green handle from Safari. I find that they cut really well. So if you're looking at bigger dog clippers, I like these. These are also made by Miller. I see these a lot in vet clinics. They're my least favorite. I don't think they cut as well as some others that are out there. But I think there was also a batch of these that came out that didn't have good blades on them. So that may not always be the case. So those are my favorite. And what I would do with Adam is I would cut with these clippers, which to the very end, clipping was his least favorite part of nail care. All the other, even the dremeling was super easy for him compared to this. So I would just cut a little bit off, and then I would, in the end, Dremel them, or working up to the Dremel, I would file them to keep them short.
Question on clippers.
Yeah.
You see advertisements and they talk about the clippers and they constitute your crunching the dog's nail. It's extremely painful. Don't use them.
Well, they're dull. Yeah.
If they're dull,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to replace your clippers every now and then. Like if they start to not cut as well or make noise, or your dog starts to pull away when you clip, those are signs that they need to get replaced. Yeah. Yeah. So conditioning your dog to love the clippers, the file, or the Dremel. It's kind of all the same. Whatever tool you're using, is the clippers appear, they get a treat. You move the clippers with your hand, they get a treat. You touch their leg with the clippers, not their paw, just their leg, they get a treat. Clippers just touch the top of their paw, they get a treat. Clippers predict good things, not conflict. And again, if you leave them out, just make them part of the picture, they also become just part of everyday life. They don't get so freaked out about you picking them up. So you can touch their paw, give them a treat. Hold their paw, give them a treat. Touch one little toe, give them a treat. Hold that little toe gently, give them a treat. Place the clipper around the nail, right? So I might just go and touch just the tip of their nail with it and give them a treat, right? And then what is my hand going to look like when I cut it? Am I going in like this, right, to cut it? How am I doing it like this? You have to figure out what's your angle, what are you doing? Simulate all of that. Give them a treat before you ever even think about cutting. You want to make sure that your dog doesn't care that you're coming at their paw with this thing and it's touching their body. And they will end up being like my dog Francis when I did 1, 2, 3 with her, like, what just happened? I got a treat. That wasn't so bad, was the response. Something just happened to me and it wasn't so bad. Clipping one nail can be a jackpot win if your dog really has a difficult time.
Explain what a jackpot is.
Ooh, a big win, right? So we can jackpot dogs with lots of food, with lots of praise. If your dog loves to play, you can whip out a toy. Like, it's a huge party. they get big rewards. So pain and anxiety are also pretty closely linked. So you want to make sure that medically your dog is okay for what you're asking them to do. So if your dog has, like Frances, for example, I thought you all giggled when she like did her little sleep down on her mat. Well, she has hip dysplasia. That's why she lays like that, right? So I'm not going to trim her nails while she's standing. That's not as comfortable for her. So we trim her nails while she's lying down. That's comfortable for her. So you want to take into consideration your dog's medical conditions. Any sort of pain that your dog might be having, by the way, it could be dental pain, it could be GI pain, it could be anything. Allergies driving them bananas. The more irritable they are because they don't feel well, the harder it's going to be for you to do these invasive things with them. So catch them in their best, at their best, right? This is where I might, if you have questions, you might want to ask Dr. Steinke, but I've included this to, one, demonstrate that there's a variety of medications that can be used to support your dog at the vet clinic if they're getting stressed. Because let's say your dog's nails are like this, and you're like, all right, I'm going home and I gotta deal with this. My dog's nails are like this, and you decide to partner with your veterinarian, and your dog has a terrible time, you should talk to them about medication for your dog, because you don't want it to be stressful, because stressful pet today is you're going to pay for it later. So again, our FAS levels of 0 to 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 5. If you are at a level 2 or 3 of fear, anxiety, and stress, you might consider what we call PVPs, or pre-veterinary visit pharmaceuticals. You medicate your dog at home, and then you bring your dog into the clinic for the procedure. Some groomers will allow dogs to come in too on medication. Some groomers get weird about that. They don't want the dog on medication. I personally would never leave my dog with a groomer. I'd want to be there for it. So maybe that's something you ask. Can I be there while you trim the dog's nails? I'm going to give them anxiety medication for that, right? If this is something that you feel like you need to outsource the issue. But when we start to get into the level 4 and 5 of stress, this is where your veterinarian might want to really give a potent dose of medication, whether it be at home before you come in, maybe in the parking lot, you're putting medication on their gel that takes 30 minutes, and then they can go into the clinic, or like Dr. Steinke said, some injectables can be used. But I have found with my clients that the vet will prescribe the PVP medication, and then the client will be afraid to give it to them, and they'll give them like half the dose. Happens all the time, right? Happens all the time. Your vet is prescribing what they think is the best dose and the lowest and best, that's safest for your dog under those conditions. But I included this slide on purpose because the dosage range is rather large for some of these medications. So like my dog, Adam, would take trazodone, and like his low dose was like 100 milligrams, and like his high dose was like 400 milligrams, right? So we started at 100, right? And did I ever have to give him 400? No, but if I needed it, I knew it was available to me. So if you try what your vet prescribes, please try what your vet prescribes, and don't alter it on your own. And then if it's not sufficient, then your vet will make an adjustment. Either they're going to change the dosage, or they'll add something else to it, or something. But your vet knows all the things.
I do want to just say here really quick that with all medications, sometimes things don't work like we want them to, especially when it comes to behavior meds. We can have like real adverse reactions to these drugs, and sometimes they're excitement responses instead of them being calming. And so again, this is just where communication goes both ways. If your dog gets real weird on a drug that's supposed to sedate them, don't give them more. But also just try to do the understanding that we're making an educated guess in a sense of what we think is going to work best for your dog. And there's individuals where it's just not going to be the right drug for them.
Right. I had a situation with my dog where we trialed trazodone for her, and it had that paradoxical effect where it amped her up. She was more agitated. I went, oh, that didn't work. And then the vet said, well, let's try a benzodiazepine. So we gave her clonazepam, and it was perfect. It did exactly what we wanted it to do for her, and she was not stressed at all. So just be open-minded to, try other things, because the goal is for your dog to not be stressed and be able to have that experience. And I don't know if this is accurate, me saying this, but a lot of times I've been told that benzos are like the forgetting drug. Yeah. So if your dog is going to go through a stressful experience, right, having a drug like that on board can't hurt in that, there might not be all that memory retention necessarily afterwards.
At least we hope so. I
We
will
hope
say sometimes dogs just get real weird.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
even my own dog the other week had a procedure, and we were hoping to sedate him a little bit pre-op, and instead he just went into an excited nibble mode that was Monty the Weimaraner and was trying to do Weimaraner nooking on everything in the clinic frantically for 20 minutes. And, clearly I was like, well, we're not doing this again, but it can go wrong.
You're so good at it.
There can be, and that's something, again, to ask your vet about. The hard thing is some of these stronger drugs, especially, can be harder on old dogs, especially if they have concerns like liver, kidneys, and so there's like a balanced approach to that. One other thing I was just gonna say really fast is with these like high fear level dogs, like my one whose heart rate goes up even under anesthesia trimming his nails. Just sometimes getting that good base, so like once a year of getting them really, really short at a good level, then following up with these other tools. Like he won't tolerate trimmers, but he'll tolerate the scratch board. We've worked up to the nail file, to maintain. But when you have those crazy long nails that are going every which way, your dog can't file those down on a scratch board. Like just anatomically, it doesn't work. You need at least some level of starting point to allow for some of these grinding tools.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So when the nails grow too long, does the whip grow longer?
To an extent, it can, and it's somewhat individual dependent. But it won't grow all the way out to the end of that really long nail, but it would be longer than on a dog that had had routine nail maintenance its whole life.
I have a dog that walks funny, who wears his nails down right to the quick so it actually bleeds.
Those. Do we have some more to go through here?
A few more slides, and then
Let me
get
let
to
you
questions.
finish, and then we'll get to questions.
Okay.
Before we get
Just
off
a few more slides, and we're going to be done. So welfare is always the first consideration, right? And success looks different for different dogs. Like Dr. Steinke said for her dog, she has a plan. Like once a year, I cut them really short, and then we use some different tools to try to maintain that until the next year when we have to cut them really short again. So if you only filed your dog's nails, that would be fine. You don't have to learn how to clip your dog's nails if filing works for you or dremeling works for you and your dog. So try not to get caught up in only one technique is what you're going to use for your dog, because you can use a combination of them too. So your takeaways are, comfort first for your dog. Them having choice in the matter builds trust. And remember that slow is fast. This is just a picture of Adam's nails. You can see they're long, but they're a little filed there. But this was generally how I kept his nails by doing all the things that I've shown you today. So it can be effective using a lot of different modalities to get the job done. And that is it. So now you may ask questions. 3 questions.
Just really quick back to your question about your dog who's wearing the nails down. So far that's bleeding on that foot. Definitely, not to sound like a broken recorder, but talk to your vet about that. Sometimes you can do like soft paws on the nails, which are like nail caps that are designed for cats and dogs to keep them from scratching hardwood floors. And they're like little plastic like covers slippers that you glue on them, and that can help be a little protective barrier for their foot. And so then they're wearing that down first. You do have to put them on fairly routinely if it's something where they're wearing it down that far. But again, that would be something I'd ask your vet about if that's appropriate with how the nails look. Yeah.
With long nails, like you showed the before and then the after, as you maintain a long nail, you clip them. Does the quick recede back?
It does recede to an extent. I mean, no matter what, you're going to always have that bony protuberance, that ungual, portion that will be there. That doesn't change size ever. But the vasculature and that will recede a little bit over time.
Okay. We had one from online.
Yeah.
Back paws are harder to do than the front paws. Any suggestions?
I like to do them lying down. So on the treatment station, lying down, because I think sometimes the dogs don't like their legs being lifted, right? And then they're off balance. That makes them very uncomfortable. And if there's anything orthopedic going on, then that could make it even worse. But again, I would do a lot of counter conditioning and desensitization on the back paws. Just gradual touching, treat, adding those different parts of the dog's leg and paw.
And another question, this one's about pads. So one dog who walks on gravel and dirt roads, pads are always rough and cracked. What about pad care? And same thing with dry nails that come from that.
Yeah. So I think that I guess if your dog is used to working, like walking on rough surfaces, they should have hard pads. Like that's protective for them. I wouldn't recommend having a dog that spends a lot of time running around concrete or dirt or rocks to be using like pad butter on them. You don't want to soften up those pads, like the soles of their feet. If they're cracking, that's a little bit different. Again, touching base with your vet, it may be something where they may need fatty acid supplementation. A lot of times things like with the pad, it's more of a systemic thing that we're trying to add in as opposed to just doing topicals.
With one more question about this person fostered shelter puppies and they start weekly nail trims at about 3 weeks.
Love it.
There's something else that they can or should be doing.
Pairing it with a lot of positive reinforcement. Yeah.
And also the trim and treat, I would say my one thing. Because
Yeah.
I definitely was kind of ingrained with puppies that you just kind of flood them with the treats and you do some nails, it's all good. But like really they need to learn they get that the actual sensation of the clip and then they get the reward as opposed to risking
because that's actually what we refer to as a behavior chain, when you're linking one behavior and another behavior and another behavior together, right? So if you go from one nail to the next nail to the next nail, but I haven't reinforced my dog for those nails along the way in the early part of the training process, then my dog might find that difficult. So puppies, a lot of puppies do not show noticeable signs of stress until they hit adolescence. So for anybody who's ever raised a puppy and you get a teenage dog, and you're all of a sudden you're like, what happened to him? I thought I did everything right. Stress and puppyhood often shows up in adolescence. They were great letting me trim their nails as a puppy, and now they're 7, 8 months old, and all of a sudden they don't want me trimming their nails because we probably flooded them a little too much, not enough positive reinforcement because we thought they were fine, right? Fluffy or Fido is not enthusiastic, right? You want to make sure that just like you're feeding them their dinner, they should be happy. If they're not, and they're showing you any stillness, lookaways, tongue licks, they're not fine. Yeah.
We do one more question.
So 2 cards. So you got one that does and one that doesn't. And one that has them, they're really curved.
Yeah, you got to cut those.
These have to be clipped though, rather than.
You can sand them or
Dremel.
by Dremel or sand by hand later. But if it's like you've got like a centimeter,
They're not that big.
okay. I mean, just realistically, there's only so much you can take off with this in a single session or even over a period of time. And it's hard to, you can keep up with the growth rate, but you can't necessarily make dramatic progress on a natural growth rate for any.
Right.
That makes sense.
Once it starts to curl around, curve under, it's hard to get the nail file in there to begin with. Yeah. Dremeling can be a little bit easier, but that's one I always just had cut. I felt better cutting it. Yeah, keeping it, and it doesn't. At least with my dogs, the dew claws didn't grow as quickly. I don't know why that is, but yeah, they don't grow as quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. You were going to have that.
Oh.